Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. So today I am going to be painting and drawing a beautiful cockatoo. These guys are called Major Mitchells and they are very vibrant and very beautiful. So I thought I'm going to do a series of postcards. I've got these postcard books, I'll show you. I've got these postcard books that come with 15 postcards, and on the back you've got all your postcard details, but you can paint whatever you want on the front. So I've got these because I can use them as gifts for Christmas and things like that. And there's all different brands you can get. So I thought this would be a nice fun one. So I might do a series of Australian wildlife. We'll see how we go. But yes, so I would love your feedback on what you think, and if you'd like to see what sort of animals what you would like to see. I paint pretty much everything, but if there's anything you would like to see painted, I'm happy to give anything a go. Just pop it into the comments below, and yeah, I will see what I can do. So I've just got to get the proportions right. So he's actually got, we don't see these so much down here. We've got white cockatoos and black cockatoos, but I haven't seen many Major Mitchells. We get, what are the other ones we get? We get lots of galahs, lots of rosellas, because I live in the country here in Victoria, Australia. So we've got bucket loads of wildlife, which is lovely. Echidnas and kangaroos and you name it, we've got it, living on our farm. So wombats, the little bulldozers they are. Yeah, all kinds of birds, all kinds of fun things. So I've got his basic, these are a strange colour. These birds are pink as well. They're like we have birds called galahs. They're very similar to a galah in colour, except for their crests is different, that's all. They've got big crests, where galahs don't have big crests. They've got quite small crests on their heads. He's got grey around his eyes. So I'll get his little eye details in. So these make great Christmas gifts for people, things like that. I'm actually going to just mark myself where his feathers come down the back here. I can erase that in a minute. Take that right down there. Down onto his back there. And then down here. Like that. I'm only going to do his head in this piece today. I'm not going to worry about the rest of his body. I'm quite happy with that as a drawing. That's pretty fair. It's pretty much where I want it. And now he's got the red patination on his feathers. It's about like that. So he's got orange and red, or it's a darker orange. So pop that down here. Come into there like that. And come right down onto that bottom feather. Alright, I'm going to leave that like that. That's pretty much how I want it. Now I'm going to use my Australian watercolours today. They're called Art Spectrum. So, where's my watercolour brush? There. Okay, so I'm going to make up this pinky tone first. I'm going to erase a little bit on his head, but I've got a line where I don't want it. I made his head a fraction small and I had to enlarge it, so I'll just take that out there, like that. Now I'm going to go in. I'm going to make this pinky colour. I have no idea how. I'm going to go in with a bit of coral, a little bit of coral red, and I'll dilute that right back. So I'm just going to add a lot more water, just a ton more water, and really dilute that back and see if I can't get, I might even use an orange as well. I'll go a red. I've got a red orange here, so I'll go a red orange, and I can always add more water, and I can always add a little bit of red on top. So I'm going to start with the red parts, because the rest of them, like the tops of their feathers, are white. On their crest, that is. It's white crests. with the orange detail. Hello, Lana. How you going, doll? How are you? So yeah, I'm painting the beautiful Major Mitchell Cocky today. And I love the colours on these guys. So how have you been, doll? So yeah, I'm using my art spectrum today, my Australian watercolours. So this is red orange, and I haven't used these in ages. I've been using my Senneliers and Schminkies and everything except the Australian one. So I thought, I'm going to do an Australian bird with Australian watercolours. So get that colour around his little beak. And now around his eye, I'll let that dry a little bit. I'll go in with this red. This is a coral colour. I'll pop a bit more of that coral on top there. So less water, more pigment. So I've got a diluted one down the bottom. It's just naturally flowed to the bottom of that well. And now he's got a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tan colour in his eyes. So I'll pop that. You just see that there. So around his pupil, he's got this gorgeous tan colour. And this is Australian red gold. It's a beautiful colour. I thought I'd use the Australian colours too, because they do have more of an Australian colour tone palette. Because Australia does have very unusual colours. All right, so that's that. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. I'm going to go back onto his beak now. I'm going to make up a grey. I'm going to use burnt umber. Where's my burnt umber? Have I got a burnt umber? I'm sure I've got a burnt umber. Yep, I've got burnt umber. Okay, that's good. 4 in. Wait, one. Okay, so burnt umber. Hello, Shane. How you going, doll? Burnt umber and cobalt blue or spectrum blue. I'll use spectrum blue. That's pretty close to cobalt. And I'll make up a grey. So I'll go into my spectrum blue. See, that blue and that brown make a lovely grey. I haven't got much of it. I don't need much of it. Okay, and now I'm going to go on to my beak. And I'm just going to add that. I'll dilute that even more. That'll dry back a couple of tones paler than I've got it. So how are we all? How is everyone? I'll take that right round. I can add darker tones as I get further into it. So I'm making a series on good. How are you in lockdown? Oh, we're free. I actually went into the city for the first time in 2 years the other day. It was bizarre. It was lovely people watching. I haven't people watched in forever. I went with my best friend and we just window shopped. It was lovely because we haven't been out in 2 years, or not into the city anyway. We've been all around the country but not into the city. So it's lovely. So I'm going to let that dry, that grey dry. And now I've got to try and make up this pink tone for his feathers. I really am not sure how I'm going to do this, but we'll take a bit of that really diluted, really diluted. That's coral red. And I'm going to take that all around, leaving that little area around his eye. That's a light grey. And he's all pink coming down. These guys are very vibrant. They are very beautiful birds, I have to say. And like I said earlier, we've had tons of birds. I've had birds I've never seen before this year. We've had the most unusual weather. We've had extreme weather, very humid. Lots of storms and things. And they've got grey wings. So, but yeah, we've had so much wildlife because it's so humid. The animals are thriving, which is really lovely. But it's really weird because everything's out early. All the animals are out early this season. It's going to darken up the reds in his little nose feathers. Maybe not that dark. I can get my damp brush and just drag that out a little. Like that. Alright. And I've got to be a bit careful because I need to darken up some of the feather textures. And while that paper's still wet, I'm going to go in with some more of that red pigment and let it sort of spread around a little bit. You hear my dogs. If you hear that banging in the background, I'm puppy sitting my daughter's dog. And she's running in and out of the doggy door and having a blast of a time. So yeah, that's all the banging going on in the background. It's her hitting the doggy door at about 3,000 kilometres an hour. All right, so now I'm going to drag that out and leave little gaps. I'm going to soften those edges, leave little gaps, and just build up the layers because that underlayer is still a little bit damp. So yeah, these are postcards. These are a great gift idea for Christmas. That's what I'll do. I'll gift these. These will become presents, Christmas presents, these paintings. It's a nice, simple way to give a gift that comes from the heart. It's a piece of yourself. And it means a lot. I love getting things that are handmade, and they're just that little bit more special. I love getting things that are handmade, and I love giving things that are handmade. All right, so now I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to go in with a darker grey. I'm actually going to use a bit of sepia. Get a bit of, oh, that's not sepia. What colour? I don't even know what that is. I'm going to grab a bit of sepia. Oh, yeah, see, it is. And I'm going to pop that into the darkest area of his beak. I'll leave a little snippet of white around the edge, like that. And I'm going to also now go around his eye with burnt umber. Where's my burnt umber? I don't know this palette very well because I've, to be honest, not used it a lot this last few years. Burnt umber and a bit of Spectrum Blue. But I do love my Aussie watercolours. I haven't used them anywhere near enough. I got all focused on international paint. But these guys, these colours are designed for Australian art. They really, truly are. So I'm just going to gently go around the outside of his iris. Got to be careful to leave that tan piece. And I've just realised that I forgot to leave the highlights for his pupil. Silly Billy, but that's okay. I can add that in with a sneaky bit of white pen. It's not the end of the world. There we go. Hello, Joyce. How are you going, doll? How are you? I'm painting a major Mitchell cockatoo today on the back of a postcard. I've got postcard watercolour paper that I'm using, and they've got postcard backings on them. So you can use these to paint little gifts for family and friends. I finally made it to... Oh, thank you, doll. It's awesome to see you. So I'm just going to use this Payne's Grey to darken up the bottom of his beak. I've got to be a bit careful. I've got to be very gentle with the colours because these birds are quite soft looking. I'm going to give him a background, but I'm going to do a green background, I think. Give him a little green background. But we'll see how we go. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow. Yep, a bit of yellow. I just had to think there may be a bit of cadmium orange. Maybe I'll go a little bit of orange. So I'll pop that up in the top there. Go an itsy bitsy bit of orange. And I'm going to pop that around the front of his little eyeball. And if you look, that colour that I had in his eye, in his iris, I used Australian red gold, and it's actually quite an orangey colour. I'm quite surprised that's dried back quite orangey. Right, so now I've got to add the detail to these feathers. Excuse the thumping and bumping in the bottom, but in the background, my little puppy is chewing a bony under my foot. I put a dot of white paint over the markers when I want to show an eye. Yes, yeah, I forgot to leave the white. So I've got my I've got Posca pens, which are like they're lovely. They are really handy actually, Posca pens. And they're like an acrylic paint, I think. So they work wonders when you forget to leave your highlights. They do work wonders. So I may just do that, Joyce. And I've also got white ink, which I can be a bit sneaky with my white ink. And get that in there to replace whites that I've lost. There's no shame in adding things in if you've forgotten. So I hope you had a lovely Thanksgiving. We don't have Thanksgiving here in Australia, but I have lots of American friends, and I try to remember the American holidays. So I hope you had a lovely Thanksgiving. A nice relaxed one, full of food and joy. So now I'm popping, this is cadmium orange or red orange. I'm using cadmium orange actually. Bit of cadmium orange. Alright, so that's looking okay. I'm happy with that. The rest of it's white. I'll add a stronger red towards the end. And this is quite simple. There's not a lot of fuss and detail in it. Now this part of his head and his crest is white. So for the shadows on the white, I'm going to use blue. And I'm going to go Australian turquoise. It's a very pale, I should clean my palette, shouldn't I? It's a very pale blue. And I'll pop that there for you. You can see that in the top right-hand side. So it's Australian turquoise. And I'm going to dilute that right down, like really wet, really diluted. Tons of water. So you can only just barely see it. And I'm going to add that into the feathery bits, into the feather where the feather texture goes. And use that for my shadows on the white. So that goes to the back. Doesn't matter if it goes onto the other parts of the feathers at all, onto the orangey bits, because it's nearly dry, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just adding that in very gently to these lighter bits. Like that. So that's his shadows pretty much done. Like nice and simple. There's no fuss to that whatsoever. And I'm going to take that also around the white part of his eye. And just gently blob that in there. Rightio. Now I need some stronger red. So I'm going to go in with a bit of coral. That's very vibrant and beautiful. So I'm actually really enjoying using these. Again, it's been a while. So I've got to take that onto a few of these feathers. Woo, not that much. Oh my God. Okay, that's okay. Clean my brush and absorb that up. That doesn't matter. Take that down onto that there. It looks amazing. The colours are so nice and soft. Thank you. They are. I haven't used them in ages. I've been focused on using my schminkies and other paints. But yeah, they are lovely. They're just designed for Australian colours, like Australian art. You know, they're Australian made and they're just very Australian colours. So it's wonderful. It makes life a lot easier. And I'm glad you like it. Your art is absolutely divine. Anyone in my chat that isn't following Lana Goes Art, please do. Oh my gosh, Lana is an inspiration. Amazing artist. So I'm just going to add this darker, this colour actually comes down the bottom of these feathers. Like that. I'll leave the tops. Right, so I'm going to let all that dry for a little bit and I'm going to go onto the background. Now, for the background, I'm going to go a sap green. So I'm going to pop that in there. I'm going to dilute it, really water it down, like really water. I want it really soft. I'm going to get my hand in it, you watch. And I'm going to take that around the whole of my cockatoo and just have a very diluted, soft green background. Because I just want that to just, because you always see these guys in the trees. We've had actually a flock of black cockatoos lately living out the back. They migrate, they stay for a few weeks a year on their migration through. And they're beautiful. And we've had lots and lots of white cockatoos. They're in abundance. And our parrots, millions of parrots of every type in our garden. It was wonderful sitting out there listening to the noise that they make. This looks a bit muted. I might go over it with a different colour just to make it a bit more vibrant, but we'll see how we go. I'm undecided. I'll see what it looks like when it dries, because it does dry a couple of tones different. And this is a very, the colour on the camera isn't really doing it justice, but I'm using my, I've got to get a better camera, because I'm using an app as a webcam, and it doesn't really show. I'm going to leave the bottom of that wing, the top of that wing rather, there, because I've got to add that in. That's a grey tone. So take that all the way around there like that. And you can see I've got a little blobby bit. That's the paper. That's a flaw in the paper, because this is, yeah, it's not, you know, it's just a standard old paper. And I'm going to get a bit of phthalo green. Let's have a look at the phthalo. Come on, phthalo. Let's have a look at you. Ooh, that's a bit too funny looking. Okay, Australian green gold maybe. We'll try that. Let's have a look at that on the palette. That's why I like to use a white palette, because you get a better gauge of what the colours look like on white. I like to see my paints on, that looks khaki. So we're not going to go that khaki brown green. That's a very Australian green, but we're not going to use that. So we are going to go back to phthalo. We're going to be brave. We're going to be brave, and we're going to dilute the phthalo, and we're going to drop it in. And we're going to not have it solid all over the whole background, but just take it around the direct edges of the bird. And let it sort of flow out a little bit. Like that. All right, take that around there. So literally doing this on the fly, just thinking, okay, what can I do? How can I make this look better? What colours can I use? Yeah, the paper's a little bit flawed, but it doesn't really matter. You can see the little blemishes that are on the paper itself. And because that background's dry, the edges aren't really flowing, which is fine, not the end of the world. I can wet my brush and actually drag those edges out a little bit, which I may do. See how we go. Get this bit of contrasty greeny dip at the bottom. Like that. Right. So now I'm just going to drag out, clean my brush, leave some moisture on it, and just drag those edges so I don't get hard edged lines. Don't want hard edged lines. So I'm trying to just damp my brush and drag those out. While it's still a little bit damp, it can move. You can move it a little bit. Watercolour's nowhere near as scary as people make it out to be. It is. You can have a lot of movement in it. So I'll just take that out and around. Problem is, it really does show up the flaws in the paper, but it doesn't matter. You know, all the texture makes it interesting, doesn't it? All the texture makes it interesting. So I'm going to go get a bit more of my phthalo, a little bit more pure pigment, just around this part of the bird's head. Make it a bit darker at the top left. While that paper's still wet, it'll diffuse around. Take that right round. I might add a little bit more of that too underneath the beak, just under here. Just drag that out and around. All right. Get a bit of contrast around these crest feathers. Take that onto there, around that edge. Right. So now I've got to add a little bit of grey onto this wing. And I'm going to use the grey that I've got existing on my palette, which is the same colour I used for his beak. And I'll just dilute that and drag that down onto his wing, because their wings are grey, a blue-grey. And this, because his colour is mixed with blue, that naturally does that for me. All right, let's have a look. So I've got to darken up his beak a little bit, just around this part. It comes around there. Try and get a little bit of depth in there. And I'm also going to add that sneaky bit of white. I need my pen. I need my white ink. Where did I stick it? There it is. Ooh, I've got my white Posca. Hang on, that'll do. Is it a big one? I've got to get my white Posca going. And I've got to add my little dots of white back onto his eye. There we go. Good old Posca pen saves the day, hey? Got that. You can see the flaws in the paper. That's really interesting. So this is, what watercolour paper is this? This is made in America. Oh, it's Richardson watercolour paper. There you go. That's what it is. Richardson watercolour paper. And it's got fine little dotty flaws in it all the way around. That is so bizarre. I've never struck that. But anyway, I don't mind it. It makes things interesting. Okay, so I'm going to add a bit of yellow to these feathers. Just a touch of yellow. And this yellow is quite opaque. It is a watercolour, but it is an opaque sort of a yellow. So I'm just going to add that a little bit over the top, or semi-opaque. So you can see it over the top of the orangey colour. It's quite strong, like that. There we go. And I'll take that onto there as well, just around this part of his eye. Pop a little bit in there. Righto, I reckon he is not far from being done. I've got to add some stronger pinks in. I'm going to go a little touch of permanent rose. Let's have a look at the permanent rose in my palette. I was going to call it my doodah. In my doodah, there. Yeah, I might use a little bit of that. We'll go a little bit of that, just diluted. So that's permanent rose. Get a bit more of that. And then water it down. Make sure it's quite diluted. And add that into the shadow areas and the darker areas underneath. And around this part of the eye. Down onto his little chest. Try and keep it. I don't want it uniform because it's all the movement in his feathers. You can see all the individual feathers with this. It's amazing. They are a beautiful looking bird. Got to pop a bit of that into his little nosy bit, and I'll take it down here as well. Very diluted, and that will dry back even more pale. There we go. But I reckon he is just about done. So I'm going to sign him. I am going to sign him down here, bottom right hand side. And that is a gift ready to give to someone for Christmas or a birthday or anything. I'll take this edging off. And I've got a low tack paper, a sticky tape, so it doesn't tear the paper when it lifts. And we, are done. So thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. I will try and come back and do another stream of another animal piece. I'll do a series of these postcards. So yeah, I'd love it if you'd pop back. I'll try and do one every weekday, at least. So hopefully I will see you next video. So thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you, Lana, Joyce, Shane, anyone who's popped in. You guys and girls are a world of awesomeness. And I will see you all next time.